Welcome to your daily Solo 401k webinar Q&A session with my Solo 401k Financial, where we help you to stop overpaying taxes and start building real retirement wealth. Today's topic: can you invest in venture capital with the Solo 401k? The short answer is yes, if you have the right type of solo 401k plan. But there are rules, and the IRS is strict about how this must be structured. So most people think 401ks are limited to mutual funds, index funds, or whatever the brokerage menu allows. However, a solo 401k can unlock opportunities that traditional retirement plans don't allow, including investing in venture capital. Of course, before you can determine whether or not you want to invest in venture capital, you want to make sure that you qualify for a solo 401k plan. So in order to qualify to open a solo 401k plan so that you can subsequently make investments in venture capital or other types of investments, whether it's equities or other alternative investments like real estate syndicates, promissory notes, tax liens, cryptocurrency, precious metals, and so forth, you need to qualify for a solo 401k. In order to open a solo 401k, you have to be self-employed. So a solo 401k is for owner-only businesses that do not employ any non-owner full-time W-2 employees who work 1,000 hours or more in your business. Your spouse can participate in the plan, even if he or she is not an owner, provided your spouse is also working in your business. You can exclude those who are under age 21, regardless of how many hours they work. As far as the type of entity that can open a solo 401k plan, any entity can open a solo 401k plan. What matters is that it's the underlying activity. More specifically, you have to be doing work. You have to be performing material services under that business, because again, it's based on earned income. So in order to open a solo 401k, you have to be performing at minimum some part-time self-employment activity. And the business itself can be structured as an LLC, sole proprietorship, partnership, S corporation. So again, it doesn't matter on the entity type as to whether or not you're self-employed. It's the underlying activity. You're doing actual work, material services. It cannot be investment income or passive income. So that's number one. Now, if this information is helping you feel more confident about your future, please take 1 second to like and subscribe. It tells the platform that this content is valuable, which helps other solopreneurs to find it. Subscribing guarantees you get notifications of all our crucial content that we deliver every day to help you secure your retirement. So go ahead and use the chat to ask questions regarding today's topic or anything else for that matter. Type them over now so that we can be sure to get to them all. Let's continue. So there are various types of venture capital that a solo 401k can invest in. You've got venture capital funds out there, private equity, angel investing, and so forth. And I know with the whole artificial intelligence boom right now, a lot of individuals are investing in companies that are private, like SpaceX, ChatGPT, Anthropic, and so forth. You can actually make those types of private investments utilizing your solo 401k plan, for example. Of course, in order to invest in venture capital, you need to make sure that you open a self-directed solo 401k plan with a company such as my Solo 401k Financial, who provides a plan that allows for investing in alternative investments, including venture capital. So the plan itself must allow for alternative investments in order for you to invest in venture capital or other types of alternative investments. Most brokerage firms that offer a solo 401k do not allow for investing in venture capital, but a solo 401k from my Solo 401k Financial does, which is a self-directed solo 401k. And with our self-directed solo 401k, you get to choose where to hold the funds at for that plan. And they can be held at your local bank or even Fidelity or Schwab, as both of those brokerage firms offer their own solo 401k, but they also provide what they refer to as non-prototype / company retirement brokerage accounts for a solo 401k offered by my Solo 401k Financial that does allow for investing in venture capital. So once you open a solo 401k with my Solo 401k Financial, we would assist you in opening up the holding accounts for the Solo 401k so that you can invest in venture capital. The funds can be held at your local bank or a brokerage firm, as I mentioned earlier, whether it's Fidelity or Schwab, for investing in venture capital. Then after that, it's time to make contributions into those accounts for the Solo 401k. And then once you make that contribution, or you can even fund that Solo 401k by transferring an IRA or a former employer plan, then you'll be able to invest in that venture capital investment fund, for example, by wiring the funds directly to the investment sponsor from the Solo 401k bank or brokerage account, or you can even write a check, but most clients will wire the funds for that investment. Title to that investment will be in the name of the Solo 401k plan. All the income that's paid out by that venture capital fund will flow back to the Solo 401k, and it'll grow tax deferred. It'll grow tax free in the case of the Roth Solo 401k. Of course, anytime you make any type of alternative investment, including in a venture capital type of investment, you need to make sure you understand the IRS regulations, specifically prohibited transactions. You typically cannot invest your Solo 401k in your own venture capital fund. You also have to take it into account if some of your relatives are invested in that same venture capital fund. The rule of thumb is typically you don't want to own 50% or more of that venture capital fund when you take into account your personal investment, certain family members, and your Solo 401k. You have to aggregate those amounts to see if you meet that 50% test. So you typically cannot own 50% or more of a private equity fund or venture capital fund, and you have to aggregate your personal investment along with your Solo 401k funds when applying that test. So the rule of thumb, anytime you make any type of Solo 401k investment, especially in alternative investments, you want to make sure it's done at arm's length, that it's not benefiting you personally, but rather the Solo 401k plan. Looks like we got a question here. Go ahead and type over your questions during the live webinar, and we'll get to those as they come in. And meanwhile, we're discussing today's topic, which is, can you invest in venture capital with a Solo 401k? And you're finding out the answer is yes, provided it's a self-directed Solo 401k plan offered by a company like my Solo 401k Financial. So here's a question. If I complete your Solo 401k application for an LLC partnership and I want to use Schwab, how long does it take for setup, including setting up Schwab's accounts? Do you handle all the Schwab stuff, or do we get to navigate with them? Assuming setup for self and spouse, does this result in 6 separate accounts at Schwab, Roth, traditional, and after tax for each person? Does setup work with existing Schwab login, or does this create entirely separate login? Great question. So let's unpack all that. So with the solo 401k from my solo 401k financial, as I mentioned already, you get to choose where to hold the money at. Holding the money at Schwab is a very common approach. And we would draft those Schwab brokerage accounts, paperwork as part of the process for your signature, and then we'll fax it into Schwab. So you don't have to leave your home or your office in order to open up the brokerage accounts at Schwab for the solo 401k that we offer. Now, from the timing perspective, it just depends how busy Schwab is. And as you can imagine, as we get closer to the end of the year, they're going to get more busy. But the good news is that from a solo 401k regulation perspective, specifically an establishment side of things, you need to simply sign the solo 401k plan documents that we draft the same day. As soon as you sign those plan documents, such as the adoption agreement, which is part of the solo 401k plan document packet, once you sign that solo 401k adoption agreement, in the eyes of the law, your plan is effective immediately. So it's the signing of the plan documents that determine when the plan is effective. It's not necessarily when the actual holding accounts are open and when the contributions are made. It's when you actually sign the plan documents. And again, for example, if you sign up for our solo 401k plan today, we'll provide you with the plan documents today. You sign them today, your plan is effective. So that means that you're going to have all the way up until next year in 2026 to both open up the brokerage accounts and make the contributions for tax year 2025. So you can have a happy new year and happy holidays by knowing that you just need to sign the plan documents. And as soon as you sign those plan documents, your plan is effective for tax year 2025. And therefore, you can wait until next year by your business tax return due date to make both the employee and employer contributions for tax year 2025. So you can make them in tax year 2026 by your business tax return due date plus timely filed extension. For example, if your business is taxed as an S corporation and you set up the plan now, that means you sign the plan documents now in 2025 by December 31st. You're going to have until March 15 of 2026 to open the brokerage accounts and make the contributions. And if you file for an extension, you're going to have until September 15 of 2026 to both open the brokerage accounts and make the contributions, both employee and employer, for tax year 2025. Obviously, we're in November, so you still have plenty of time to both adopt the solo 401k plan, because we'll provide the plan documents the same day, and you're still going to have time to open up those brokerage accounts. But typically, it takes Schwab between 3 to 5 business days, maybe a few more days, depending on how busy they are, to open up the brokerage accounts. So in short, you should probably allow for at least 5 to 7 days from where the brokerage accounts are open. And yes, if both spouses are self-employed in the same business, both of you would participate in the same solo 401k plan. Take a look at this image on the right-hand side. That's an example of a 2-participant plan. So let's say we've got Jane and Thomas, who are both self-employed in the same LLC. Let's say the name of the LLC is ABC LLC. You name the solo 401k ABC Retirement Trust. So ABC LLC will sponsor the ABC Retirement Trust. Because Jane and Thomas both work under the same self-employed business, it's one plan. Therefore, they're each going to have separate holding accounts, aka bank or brokerage accounts, in this case brokerage accounts, to hold each source of funds. So a total of 6 brokerage accounts. So it's not 6 separate solo 401k plans, it's one plan with 6 separate holding accounts, 3 each for each spouse, because they're both participating in the same solo 401k plan. And a solo 401k is a defined contribution plan, and you are required to therefore separately track each participant's funds and each source of funds. So one pre-tax solo 401k brokerage account, a second brokerage account for the Roth solo 401k funds, and a third brokerage account for the voluntary after-tax solo 401k funds, times 2 for a total of 6 brokerage accounts because we have 2 spouses in the plan. But here are my solo 401k financial. We'll draft those Schwab brokerage forms. After you sign them, we'll go ahead and fax them into Schwab. Schwab will send you an email once the brokerage accounts have been opened. You'll be able to view those brokerage accounts under the same Schwab platform because these are brokerage accounts for a solo 401k offered by my solo 401k financial. So just like if you had a personal brokerage account at Schwab, you're going to log into Schwab to view those brokerage accounts, and only you will have access to those funds. We're not going to have access to the funds, and that's by design because we don't need to have access to our clients' funds in order to help them provide compliance support and assist them with questions about their solo 401k and reporting. So great question. Okay, again, go ahead and type over your questions during the live chat. Please also like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. All right, so we've been talking about how a solo 401k can invest in venture capital. Let's continue with that, and then we'll take a look at some more questions. So, looks like we've come to the end of our topic about covering venture capital with the solo, how to invest in venture capital with the solo 401k. But looks like we have another question here. Let's see that. Let's take a look at that. I currently have a solo 401k with E-Trade for my LLC tax as an S Corp. Is it possible to switch to your solo 401k plan? Does your plan allow loans? I currently have a loan with E-Trade 401k to use as working capital for my business. Great question, and the answer is yes. That's known as a restatement. A restatement is IRS terminology to mean that you can switch from a current solo 401k provider to a new solo 401k provider. And that type of change does not trigger any Form 1099-R or Form 5500 easy reporting with the IRS because you're not necessarily closing your solo 401k. Instead, you're moving an existing solo 401k, in this case from E-Trade, to a new solo 401k offered by my solo 401k financial. So when you complete our online application, one of the questions we ask is for the original effective date of that existing plan. In this case, the E-Trade solo 401k plan, and you can obtain that original plan effective date by calling E-Trade or by reviewing the adoption agreement for that E-Trade solo 401k. And that date, the original plan effective date, will be populated on the new plan documents for the new solo 401k plan that we offer. And then you'll be able to move that E-Trade solo 401k plan over to a plan offered by my solo 401k financial. And the funds for that solo 401k plan can be held at Fidelity or Schwab, for example. I'm not mentioning E-Trade because ever since E-Trade merged with Morgan Stanley, they've been very tough to work with regards to opening up brokerage accounts at E-Trade for a solo 401k offered by an outside provider. In this case, my solo 401k financial. So if you want to use E-Trade for the new brokerage accounts, we can certainly assist you in doing that by preparing the applicable brokerage forms for E-Trade. But just be forewarned that E-Trade is very slow in opening up the new brokerage accounts. I've seen it take as long as 6 months before they even open up the new brokerage accounts. But then the existing E-Trade solo 401k would get transferred to the new brokerage accounts at E-Trade for the solo 401k that we offer. And the loan, the participant loan, that would continue, but now it would fall under this new solo 401k plan with us, but you would still have to continue making those solo 401k loan participant payments pursuant to the original payment schedule. So good question. Okay, we're almost done with today's topic. Now, if you have any other questions, we'll be live again here in a few hours. So that's it for today's solo 401k session. Thank you so much for investing your time with this. Your time is valuable and your retirement future is worth it. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe to keep building this community. Until next time, have a great rest of the morning.